Broadcasting from the KMF Collective Studio, it's time for the Keep Moving Forward podcast. Join us every week as we dive into the stories of remarkable current and former athletes that have transitioned into the real world. Now here's your host, Katie Galley.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the 207th episode of the Keep Moving Forward podcast. I'm your host, Katie Galley. Today in the KMF Collective Studio, I have with me owner of Prime Body Studios, fitness trainer, and athlete, Faith Lee. How are you doing, Faith?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing awesome. Thank you so much for stopping by and sharing your story with us today.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Faith. So just to kind of dive in and get to know your background a little bit, I wonder, where did you grow up and how, if at all, was your childhood shaped by athletics?
Oh, wow. That is such a good question. So I'm very much a Marine Corps brat, I guess is the best way to say it.
Yeah.
My parents, I was born in California, and then we moved to Florida when I was about 6. And what's so awesome is my mom was like, we're not going to bounce back and forth. We are going to call this our home base no matter where my dad goes. No matter what happens, like, we are staying put. I'm not moving you guys around. And so being around two military parents, my dad was very much like, how do you know when you're unhealthy? At what level? He literally used to tell us this when we were younger. At what level do you know you're unhealthy? Like when you put on 20 pounds, 30 pounds, he's like, so he really kind of always spoke on those things. And I don't know if it was from the PT test or the different things that he had to do, but it was something he was really adamant about as we were growing up. So that had a lot to do with it growing up and just being healthy. So he instilled that in us early.
Yeah. So, I mean, constantly then just being aware of what healthy looks like. And so having that kind of fitness being introduced to your life at a young age. And so for you then, Faith, did that start to take this shape of, were you physically active as a child? Did you start to get into sports? What did that look like for you?
So I wasn't into sports. I actually played the violin.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I played for 6 years, and I then was homeschooled. My parents were really big on keeping the environment under control, I guess, and they started kind of seeing, as we became civilians, I always joke with people that, like, I remember being 7 and going to a park, and my mom was like, this kid got in trouble for shooting a bird. And I'm like, okay, I don't understand. Like, I didn't see a dead bird. I don't know what you're talking about. Because I was just like so, so conditioned to a certain lifestyle when we became civilians, which means you're no longer living on the base. It was a different life. It was, people weren't as respectful as being on the base and stuff like that. So we had experienced a little bit of that here, but that portion of my life never really kind of created my fitness journey. My fitness actually started after my dad left for war. He left for the Gulf War first, and then he left again for another war prior to anybody else. He was like one of the first ones out. And when he came back, we found out he had cancer. And that's what started a lot of my fitness journey was I didn't know how to process. I didn't know how to cope with it. I had had such a safe environment. And then it was like, boom, this is real life. This is what's really going on. And as I started kind of just honestly just avoiding the situation, I started working out. And at the same time, I was going through a really bad breakup. Like, it was like the worst cycle I could have possibly been in. I was going through a really bad breakup with my son's father. My dad was sick with cancer. So I used working out as an outlet. And I knew that it was better than the alternatives of, going out and drinking, because that was definitely there present beforehand. So that was what kind of led me into fitness.
So then why Faith? I mean, like you're saying, you could have easily gone down any other path. So why fitness? Why did you choose to go down that path so fervently?
So that's a great question. These are great questions. I got to give it to you today.
Thank you.
So actually what happened was I was partying. I was hanging out, and I was trying to find every means and way to avoid the situations of everything that was going on around me. I didn't know how to deal with anything. my son's father was a big drinker, and he hung out, but I did have my son also. So it was like, I was around like 18 at this time, and I just knew I couldn't let my son down. I couldn't let my, job down. I couldn't let any of these things down. I had all these responsibilities. So the drinking part really wasn't fitting for me. And then one day we got a phone call, literally after like going out, me and my son's father, kind of like in that in-between stage where you're together, but you're not. And we had gone out the night before. And then the next morning we get a call that my dad was in the hospital again. And they said, they think it's his kidneys this time. They think that he has an issue with his kidneys. And I woke up and I'm like, oh my God, even if like I could be one to give him a kidney right now under these conditions, I couldn't even help him.
Wow. And
it was just like this reality moment of, you would be the reason, you'd be the reason he doesn't make it.
Wow, man. And that's such a powerful realization and shift to have then. And then to drive you to do that 180, completely change your lifestyle in pursuit of, okay, if somebody does need me in my life, just living in that constant state of preparedness then.
Yeah, it completely shifted. I can give 100% credit to that day of like, oh my God, if it's his kidneys, you're not going to be a candidate to help him. And that was it. That's all it took. It didn't take anything else.
Wow.
I didn't have to have, like, more in life obviously happened after that, but that was the one that I was like, okay, go to the gym, work out. And then I started doing more and more research on, like, why do people get cancer and how does cancer happen? And I started learning more and more about, the way that the cells duplicate and how you have to eat good and give your body nutrition. And I started realizing, like, working out is so good for you in more ways than just the body and the way the athletic look is. So it really became more of a, you don't want to end up sick also, and that's the route I took with it. And I just dug into it, and it's like, I never stopped. I just kept wanting to know more. I wanted to understand more. I didn't understand, how somebody that looked so healthy and always talked about health and always, worked out and always did what you're supposed to do. And then to see it go the other way, I was like, this just doesn't make sense. So,
man. And so then for you, Faith, when you had that day and you, you made that shift and then started to, like you said, you started to research cancer and ailments and trying to discover different things. So it was along the way of your physical fitness journey, also on the educational side, trying to learn more about what you were diving so far into. So then how did that set you on the trajectory that you are on today? Did you start to compete in different shows? Did you start to compete in different events? How did kind of your own fitness journey then begin to unfold from that day forward?
So from that day forward, I actually was in pharmaceuticals. So I had it's so crazy how it ended up happening. I was in college with nowhere near an idea of where I wanted to go. Had like 50 credit hours that did not match up. Like nothing went together. I was working full time in pharmaceuticals. I was just kind of still working out and not thinking about fitness in that way. I was just working out and like eating good and like, making sure my son ate good and putting him in sports and stuff like that. And it kind of went throughout for about 2 years where I was just kind of avoiding it. And we were going through life and all of that. And then everything hit the fan at once. Me and my son's father completely broke up, stopped talking to one another completely. My dad passed away, and
wow.
So that had a huge impact. So my gym sessions became much longer than necessary, because I knew that something wasn't right, but I didn't know what, Yeah. And even so in the midst of that, I actually ended up getting an assistant. Like I wasn't doing, I think, what my like calling was. I think I kind of went to the side. And I just kept working out for no real purpose or anything. And then I got an assistant, and her nephew, who was the same age as my son, actually ended up with cancer.
Wow.
And I was like, you're kidding me. And I watched this, 5-year-old kid that played football with my son literally become quadriplegic into a chair within like a 6-month period. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, there's no way. Like, and I'm telling her about what I know about cancer. And I'm like, you don't understand. And all this stuff happened with his insurance, and they wouldn't cover his physical therapy. So I was in school with no direction. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go into physical therapy, and I'm going to do pro bono cases. I'm just going to help these kids that don't have the means, and I'm going to really give back. And so I changed my direction in school and started doing more classes that were geared towards that, and started doing internships at like different physical therapy places. And that is what did it for me, because that is when I realized that like personal training was a real job, and that you can actually like go further with this. So in the midst of all of that, I started taking my training so much more serious, because I started learning more about how the body works. And I started understanding that like you can't overtrain and undereat, and you can end up with this amazing result. And that's what led me into focusing on shows and using that as a way to keep myself goal oriented and focused, instead of like, every couple months we all want to quit. Every couple months we all kind of want to sit back. But whenever I had a show, I noticed I was able to keep the same course. I was able to say, okay, this class is hard. This internship is hard. These people are frustrating. I'm going to use these shows as like mile markers to keep me going to the next stage. And so that's kind of what led me there. And that's a very abbreviated form of all the stuff that happened, but it was really geared toward, I realized I needed to stay healthy for myself and my son. And I knew that working out and focusing on my workouts and my food and what I was putting into my body and how I was treating myself was actually like taking me one step closer. Like day after day, no matter what around me was going on, it kept me focused.
Man. And I mean, I think that's the key then. I mean, what you're saying, you felt kind of directionless when you were in school, but it took having those outside circumstances, those people that you care about, having it be so put in front of you. Like there's a child your son's age going through something and you wanting to be there and being able to help these young people, any person struggling. And so being able to say, okay, I'm going to go all in with PT then. And so then having it lead you down this path. So it was that thing that was placed on your heart. You just needed that direction to go through. And so that's what you did. You went all in with it. And that took the form of going to school. And then, like you said, doing those shows to keep your competitive drive up and kind of set those mile markers to remind you of why you were doing that. And so for you then, Faith, why were the shows the thing that kept you going, that competitive drive, having those mile markers? What made you decide to get into those shows, and what shows specifically were they?
So one thing I kind of realized early on is being a mom, you become very selfless. You really don't focus on what makes you better or what makes you tick. It's everything. It's, I will work from these hours to these hours for my son. I have to be home by this time because of my son. We have football or baseball or whatever, soccer, on the weekend. So that's for my son. And so that was the one piece of my life that I was able to say, I can only give to him by taking care of myself, and it was something I knew I had to show him, that no matter what, Mom will take care of herself and she will continue to, look good and be healthy. So that is what kind of like got me, kept going and going. And and I guess that was like my piece of being selfish, I guess, like, because you give so much, you're working, you're paying for all these sports, you're doing all this stuff, you're constantly driving like around and picking up friends and everything, and that was my piece of shut off and selfishness that I needed to stay giving, and I think I've seen it even more now that he's older and gone, but it was what got me through. So I did the Lakeland Classic. Oh my God, this was so many years ago. And then I did an Orlando. It might have been like Midwest or something like that, or mid Orlando. These were, I want to say, in the 90s. And like early, yeah. It's been a while. And then I went I went away for a little bit, actually, when Lewis was around in those teen years. I took a little bit of a break just because it was so much. We had 5 days of football practice, morning practice, evening practice. I had him in different trainings. I really put his needs first.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, during that time frame, I look at it now and I'm like, man, if you would have just stayed competing, you would have knocked out all your goals, because it forces you as a mom to be like, okay, well, I have your stuff at this time, this time, this time. I have my stuff at this time. You're so scheduled and so structured, because if you're not going to have the result. You're just not going to hit it. So I loved it. Now looking at it, I have too much free time where you have to stay so structured. And I took a break for a while, and then I came back and I actually did WBFF. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
No, yeah. What is that?
So WBFF is World Beauty, Fitness, and Fashion.
Okay.
And it's kind of started as like NPC was going strong, and it was more of like a glamorous kind of like pageant fitness show. So you have a dress round for bikini, and you strut your stuff a little differently. It's a beautiful venue. It's a whole event, like a couple days long. It's really wonderful. And when I came back, I actually came back and did the WBFF. I did Orlando in 2013. And then I did the LA Pro twice in 2014 and 2015. And then I was like, these shows are really further apart. I think I'm going to go back to NPC, because I didn't really conquer that league. I left before I was able to conquer it. And it was something I wanted to go back and see how I would do. And so I did the Hurricane Bay and I did the Tampa Pro, both of the last 2 years.
Wow. And so Faith, I mean, getting so involved in those shows, and like you said, it was something that in order to give all to your son, which you were doing, you had to pour into yourself too. You couldn't pour from an empty cup. And so these shows were a way to do that. And so were they, like, with the different shows that you're talking about, and like you said, the WBFF, is it primarily then like beach body shows, or like what I'm trying to say, like what kind of shows are they?
They're very fitness oriented.
Yeah.
WBFF now, I'm kind of like, I always say to do what scares you.
Yeah.
And the WBFF, when I started, was when they were like in their second year of really launching it in 2013. I want to say they were in their second or third year. So it was a softer look. But now I'm a little like, if I'm going to compete in WFF coming up soon, I'm sure, just because it scares me a little bit. Mm-hmm. I mean, these women's bodies are phenomenal, like just cut and great, like volume to them and nice curves, a next level of fitness for sure. So it's really nice to see. And it's scary a little bit, because you're like, man, I have to up my game to get to that level. But again, like I said, I look back and think the years I didn't compete, where my life was and where my growth was as an individual. And because I wasn't taking care of myself during those times, I can see that in how my life actually unfolded during those years versus the years where I've really focused on taking care of myself, providing myself with the proper nutrition, providing myself with workouts and time for me to shut off, has just been, I feel like I've started so many businesses, and I have a charity now, and I have all this stuff, and it's all happened while I've been focusing on my fitness.
Man. And that's amazing. I mean, all of that, it stems from that. I mean, everything you started and just keep following down this journey, it opened up all these different doors for you, and you got to walk through all of them and start these different things. And so Faith, for you then, once you really got into shows and like you were saying, it just had these opportunities to give you the chance to do all these different things. What led you then to eventually open or be the owner of Prime Body Studios?
Oh, the wonderfulness. Oh, this is a good story. This is a good one. So again, during this time, 2013, I did my first WBFF show. This was 2013. Yeah, around there. And then I did a second and third one. I did the LA Pro that year, and then the following year. And then my job, I was actually working as a nutritional counselor, because in the midst of all of this, I just kept pushing and going to school. and I became a nutritional counselor for like nutrition and behavior modifications.
Wow.
And all of a sudden on December 4th of 2015, I get a phone call, and it's a corporate company. They were a franchise, and or not a franchise, they were a corporate company. And they were looking to franchise. So that was the reason I had worked with them, is I thought that would be my next step, to integrate my fitness with my nutrition and really be able to give back. Because at that job, I was not allowed to talk fitness. I was only allowed to talk about nutrition. I wasn't allowed to talk fitness. And I always felt like that was the piece that was missing, is people are getting healthy and losing weight, but we are not allowed to tell them to do workouts. We were not allowed to give direction. Even though I had my personal training cert and all of that, and went to school in PT and did all of that, I wasn't allowed, and I followed the rules. We're very HIPAA compliant, very, very clinician based. And through that job, when they called and they said, hey, by the way, we've decided to completely change the format, and we will be closing on December 30th. And I was like, okay. So I went to school, I got the job, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm, taking care of my son. And I had always told my son, if you go to college, like, I will pay the way. All you have to do is get in. Don't worry about it. I got it. So he was 17, about to graduate, because he did online. He did everything. He had a 6.9 GPA, and he got into FSU.
Wow.
And we were getting ready, getting everything set up. We just needed, at that time, we were waiting for the official letter to come through in February, but we knew it was happening. He did everything he was supposed to get into college and have good grades and all the good stuff. So I found out the job was ending, and I'm like, okay, well, here I go. This is my opportunity to take what I know about nutrition and what I've been doing, and maybe make it more of a coaching type thing and less of a, you're already sick, now what do we do? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so they were like, if you stick it out till the 30th, we'll give you a severance, and we will let you go, and you will also collect unemployment. And I was like, all right, I can do this. So my severance was a whole $6,000.
Wow.
That I also had to pay FSU for, because I didn't have we didn't get all the scholarships. We got a few, but we had to pay for dorms. We had to pay for everything. And so I basically took a leap of faith, and I said, all right, I'm going to open up my own studio, and I'm going to keep training my people that I have not been allowed to talk to about training. They told me I could reach out to any of the clients, because they were basically letting all the clients go.
Wow.
So I did have that in my favor. I called every single client, and I went across the street to this personal training studio, and I said, I want to partner with you. I don't know in what way or how I can help, and I don't know if I can, but this is worth me asking. I'm going to bring clients with me. Can I basically rent space? And I got so lucky that I don't know what they were going through at that moment. He was like, I got an office in the back. You don't need to pay me rent for the first month.
Wow.
Let's go. Yeah. And that's what created the first, actual, me being a trainer / nutritionist. It literally was, I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
And I knew I wanted to stay in the same field. I knew it was my calling. I knew it was what I'm supposed to do. There was no question about that. It was just, in what way was I going to do it? In what format, basically. And at that time, this was the end of 2014, going into 2015, there wasn't as online the way it is now,
Yeah.
So
right.
It wasn't in that way. So that's what created Prime Body Studios, and
Wow.
I haven't stopped.
I love that. And you, like you said, you created it because you had to do it. You had no other option. You had to go all in. You had to figure out how to make ends meet, how to help your son go through, get through college. And that's just an incredible thing. But the idea too, that you got to do something that you loved too. You got to decide to go all in with something like that. And so then Faith, fast forward. So you started off with Prime Body Studios, had your space, had your clients. And like you said, overall, over time, being having a presence online became more and more important. And so for you now, what does that look like for you? Have you opened up your services to online? How has your business progressed over the past couple of years?
Yeah, so over the last few years, it actually started with one-on-one training and one-on-one nutrition coaching in person.
Wow.
And I also always had online. I just didn't see it as my number one. It was kind of like something, if somebody's family member lived in California, I would still help them because I wanted to provide the service. It wasn't, I understand some people don't live here. So I've always had both. Mm-hmm. And then my training started off as one-on-one, and then one friend would bring another friend, and we created a group. And then from that group, it created another group. And then from that group, another friend wanted to be, and they didn't do that time, so I created another group. So now I have 6 trainers, 2 studios, and I am still privately training. I just have a much more balanced schedule than when I started. Now it's like, oh, I'm here for 3 hours in the morning and 2 hours this night, and it's wonderful. And so we do have the full studio. We do group personal training now. I have a group personal training certification that I created for my trainers with hands-on training so that they can learn cues and how to properly assess somebody, because you don't learn those hands-on things in the book, So I spend a lot of my time doing the trainer program. That's like my baby right now. Mm-hmm. And I do have online also. I have a small fitness team of about 6 young ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to be competing later this year. So lots of fun stuff going on.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds it, and it's really amazing what it's grown to be. And like you said, it's not just you now. You have other trainers you've brought on board, mm-hmm. and who can help just perpetuate your mission. And so Faith, mm-hmm. For you, like you said too, you also have now a charity. So what is this charity, and how does it kind of align with this mission that you're on with Prime Body Studios and everything else that you're doing?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked about the charity. I was hopeful you would. So I created Stronger Than a Mother because I have always just kept pushing. And when somebody say, like, what's the driving force behind it? Yes, I dealt with death and I dealt with sicknesses. But at the end of the day, every time I wanted to quit, I had my son. So
yeah,
I'm sorry. This is just...
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Oh, this is still just so, so deep for me because I did all this to build a life for us, mm-hmm. to work. I gave up so much time to provide. And I mean, my son went to FSU and I paid for everything. I kept my word.
Yeah.
I paid his car. I mean, he loved polos. I remember sitting with him when he was 16 and saying, if you get these grades, I am covering your car. I am covering your insurance. I am covering your clothes. And he looked at me and he was like, you're going to cover all of that when I go away? And I was like, I will do my part if you do yours. Yeah. And he did.
Wow.
And I did my part. And no matter what, we made it through. And trust me, there were days where I was like, okay, so if I pay the rent to the studio late, I will be able to pay this month's fraternity fees, because those were crazy. I don't know if anybody knows about those, but there's these fraternity fees that they charge you. But he had done everything I asked. How could I tell him no? He followed through. He had integrity. And that was something that, for a single mother to see your son become such a man, it was like everything I could ask for. So in the midst of all of this, I look back one day, and my son is off now doing his own life and everything. And we actually went through a spot where we didn't talk. And I'm like, I've given up my son for this place. I've literally given up my relationship with him, because when he left to college, I just completely broke down. And I said, I just don't know you. I don't even know what color sheets to buy because I've been working so hard to provide for you.
Wow.
And I'm like, I don't even, I still remember my Power Ranger underwear, and now you're wearing like boxers. Like, this is such a big deal to me. And he looked at me and he's like, Mom, whatever. Like, you're just, and I'm like, no, you don't. I mean, like, I just fell apart. I just lost it because I realized I had worked so hard in this fear. I was constantly in this fear of, do I let the business go that's actually providing for him and creating this life for him and allowing him to be in a fraternity and live in the dorm and have the food card and, do all of these things. But I need to do this business because otherwise I won't be able to provide that for him. And I made a promise. So I made it through. And I just one day sat back and I said, there's got to be other women out here that are trying to go after it, and they've got the business and it looks good on paper and everybody on social media is jealous. But in reality, they're making those decisions of, what can I pay late, or what do I need to move, or I just won't pay for my new gym membership, or I won't pay for my training or my coach. And so that's where Stronger Than a Mother came from, is I don't want to see somebody else go through that, especially a mom that is going after it. Because there aren't any services, like you cannot get government funding when you're actually making a little bit of money, but our kids are still suffering somewhere. So I created Stronger Than a Mother to be able to provide financial resources for continuing education for single moms, so that the moms can get the continued education to further their company, or the computer program that will take their system to the next level, or the coaching that they may need. Cause say they're doing business, but they're stuck. They're just not making that extra $1,000 to get that next step. And that's what Stronger Than a Mother is all about, is helping a mom who is going after it and providing the resources, whatever that may look like. We don't have a cap on specific, like it has to be coaching or it has to be this. We just want it to be for somebody that is going after it and they have a kid and they don't know what their next step is and they don't feel supported. We want to offer that support.
Wow. That's such an incredible and admirable thing. I mean, to reflect on your own journey and not only have gotten through it and to help your son just in every way possible to deliver in the ways that you said you were, but then too, to recognize selflessly that you can't possibly be the only one who has struggled like this, and to then in turn create something to help people like yourself, to create the resource that you wish you had had at that time in your life.
Exactly.
So that's just so cool. And so Faith, I mean, from then when you decided, okay, I'm going to create this charity now, this thing that I wish I had, this thing I needed at that time. Fast forward to now. So from the time that you created it to now, how has it grown? Where do you see it growing? Where do you hope it grows to?
That is what we are actually working on right now. There's a lot of moving pieces in it, and it's very interesting. Right now we're starting quarterly brunches where we're inviting other moms or just charity workers or just people that want to be involved in the community to kind of give us some feedback so that we can create. This year will be our first event.
Wow.
But we're starting with small brunches to get the feedback and find out where the needs are and who can we help and how can we help. And then I've also partnered with a few other studio owners that actually have like continuing education programs. And a few of them have donated programs for, let's say a mom wants to become a yoga instructor, but she doesn't have the $3,000 or whatever it takes. I have a yoga instructing owner who is giving one away. So we're making those partnerships in the community, and also right now taking like feedback and trying to find out what's the best way we can help. And then also, if anybody listening, we do have a nomination stage that we've been working on, which is, if you know somebody that is going after it and they're just in that spot of stuck, one thing about moms is we won't ask for help. We'll get through it. We'll figure it out. And we have a nomination on our website that says, if you know a mom that's going after it, nominate her. Let us know how we can help. Tell us her story. And we'll just send her a check just to help her. She's not going to ask. I know this. I never asked. I never asked for help. I just kept going. And I'm so thankful to have some of the most amazing friends. I have such an amazing support network. My parents, my mom was just amazing. she did nothing for me. She made me figure it out. And I thank God for that.
Yeah.
Because she made me so strong. And she'd be like, okay, this is what you're going to do. How? Why? When? Okay. Tell me more. But she never did it for me. And that's what we want to do, is we want to help them figure out their next steps without it just being like, okay, just give up or whatever. So we're really looking at having those kind of events where we get the community involved and we find out what the need is and how we can help more. We have the nomination where you can nominate somebody so that we could just, the person that won't ask for the help, that they need it, even if it's just their cert or whatever they need to get paid for, or even to support coaching, whatever the case may be. So that's the route we're going right now, and we are hopeful to, eventually see it where we have a yearly event and have good volunteers that are willing to help us. So just taking it step by step.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's so amazing that you've created this resource and that now you're spreading the word, you're getting the legwork, you're doing the legwork to get it going. And it's all because you had these own experiences yourself. And so now, like you said, from the beginning, you, these things, you felt directionless, but then all of a sudden, you felt this purpose because you wanted to help people. And it started with your dad and then your son's childhood friend. And then it just, this snowball effect led you to this point in your life where you are today, what you're meant to do, this passion on your heart. And it's amazing when you're willing to kind of lean into that journey, having no idea where it's going to lead you. It brings you to exactly where you were always meant to go.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, man. And so Faith, I mean, reflecting back on this incredible life that you've led and knowing, looking forward, that you're going to accomplish so much more with Stronger Than a Mother and continuing with Prime Body Studios, I just have one final question that I ask all of my interviewees. What do you want to be remembered for?
Oh, just love. Just that I love people, no matter what they walked into my door with. And some of them have come in with some heavy, heavy baggage. And I just want to remember that no matter how you came in, you always left feeling loved.
Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. To learn more about our guest, check out the show notes at keepmovingforward.us. While you're there, go ahead and subscribe to our newsletter to stay up to date on all things coming out of the KMF Collective Studio. Always remember, you can beat the odds and go the distance if only you keep moving forward.